Welcome to your midday NTD News. I'm Emily Ho. More than 1.7 million Hong Kongers joining a peaceful rally on Sunday, continuing their call for the government to engage with their demands. It marks the 11th consecutive week of protest.
Despite pouring rain, crowds filling Victoria Park and spilling into nearby streets. They're condemning police violence during previous weeks of demonstrations. Protesters held signs with slogans including "Free Hong Kong" and "Democracy Now." They want to show they are peaceful and rational and will not give up on their 5 demands, which include a full withdrawal of the controversial extradition bill, retraction of calling the protests riots, the unconditional release of those arrested, an independent inquiry into events since June, and universal suffrage.
I think before accusing protesters for anything, try to look at the real problem and how the government how they turn a blind eye to us and to our demands.
We are expressing our views very peacefully, not violently, and this is what the government wants. This is what the government demands, and it is actually the best time for them to positively respond to our demand.
The campaign have the support, but the government doesn't. So we urge that Carrie Lam must listen to people's voices and implement the 5 demands.
The massive turnout, about 1.7 million people, say organizers, was also the calmest so far. Over the weekend, solidarity rallies were held in Vancouver, Toronto, London, Los Angeles, San Francisco, New York City, and Sydney. Speaking to reporters yesterday, President Trump said he supports liberty and democracy in Hong Kong, warning Beijing that a violent crackdown would harm trade talks.
No, I think it would be very hard to deal if they do violence.
More protests are planned for the coming weeks, with various rallies organized by accountants, transport workers, high school students, and relatives of police officers. Reporting by Eleanor Tsao, NTD News.
Back to the United States, there could have been 3 more mass shootings across the nation if these men weren't stopped by the police. Police in Ohio finding an arsenal of assault rifles and large knives, a stockpile of ammunition, and even a gas mask. All this inside the home of James Reardon, a 20-year-old self-described white nationalist who they say made a threatening post about a mass shooting at a nearby Jewish community center. Reardon was on authorities' radar after making a post on Instagram showing a man firing off a gun, a local Jewish leader saying it had a disturbing caption. Police identified the Youngstown Jewish family community shooter as local white nationalist.
That kicked off a very intense investigation. He was charged initially right now with telephone communication harassment and aggravated menacing.
Police say Reardon attended the deadly 2017 rally in Charlottesville, as seen in this interview with National Geographic.
I want a homeland for white people, and I think every race should have a homeland for their own race.
His arrest, the latest in a string of mass shooting threats. In Florida, police body camera footage shows the arrest of Tristan Scott Wicks outside a Daytona Beach grocery store.
We're going to set your bond at no bond for the protection of the public, given the threat to kill at least 100 people.
The 25-year-old detained after police say his ex-girlfriend alerted them to a series of text messages detailing plans to commit mass shootings, writing chilling words like, "I want to open fire on a large crowd of people." And in Connecticut, police arresting 22-year-old Brandon Wagshaw last week after receiving a tip that he tried to buy a large-capacity rifle magazine out of state. He's been charged with illegal possession of large-capacity magazines.
There was some historical Facebook post that indicated his interest in mass murder. That certainly raised an eyebrow. So the investigators worked very quickly and diligently.
Investigators also discovering numerous weapons, including a handgun and rifle, ammunition, body armor, and tactical gear inside his home. Emily Ho, NTD News. Also in the United States, Jeffrey Epstein's lawyers say they are not satisfied with the autopsy results from the New York City Medical Examiner's Office. The office concluded on Friday that the sex trafficker hanged himself. 3 lawyers for Epstein are challenging the findings, saying they want their own investigation. The official ruling came 6 days after the 66-year-old was found unresponsive in his jail cell. Chief Medical Examiner Dr. Barbara Sampson issued a brief statement saying that her conclusion was reached after careful review of all investigative information, including complete autopsy findings. But a Justice Department official told the Associated Press that some prison staffers who may have relevant information are cooperating with investigators. Epstein's lawyers have hired well-known private pathologist Dr. Michael Baden. An Iranian tanker is sailing through the Mediterranean toward Greece today after it was released from detention off Gibraltar. Tehran has warned that any U.S. move to seize the vessel again would have heavy consequences.
The Grace 1, renamed the Adrian Darya 1, left anchorage off Gibraltar around 11 p.m. last night. Tracking data shows the vessel heading to Greece today, scheduled to arrive there next Sunday. The data also reveals the ship is carrying about 2 million barrels of oil, valued at tens of millions of dollars. British Royal Marines suspected the tanker was carrying oil to Syria in violation of European Union sanctions when they seized it near Gibraltar on July 4th. A weeks-long standoff between Tehran and the West followed. Gibraltar, a British overseas territory, lifted the detention order on Thursday, but the next day, the U.S. issued a warrant for the tanker, the oil, and nearly $1 million. Washington says the tanker has links to Iran's Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, which it identifies as a terrorist organization. Gibraltar said on Sunday it was bound by EU law and so it couldn't comply with the United States' request to detain the tanker. Washington wants to reduce Iran's oil exports to zero and has reimposed sanctions that place heavy penalties on any breach, including asset freezes and being cut off from the U.S. financial system. The Adrian Darya 1, alongside other tankers, has since become a pawn in wider hostilities amid Iran's increasing its sensitive nuclear activities outside its agreed limits. Miguel Moreno, NTD News.
Freshman Democrat Congresswoman Ilhan Omar and Rashida Tlaib are at the center of controversy again, this time after the pair shared a political cartoon by an artist who once won an Iranian Holocaust cartoon competition.
The cartoon in question shows Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu covering Tlaib's mouth and President Donald Trump doing the same to Omar. It's by Brazilian cartoonist Carlos Latuf, known for extreme left-wing views on many global issues. He often uses the Holocaust as a metaphor for the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. In 2006, he won second prize for a drawing that shows a Palestinian man wearing a Nazi concentration camp uniform. According to the Associated Press, the curator of the contest said at the time that the competition would continue until the destruction of Israel. Latuf defends himself, saying anti-Zionism is not the same as anti-Semitism. Meanwhile, on Saturday, Tlaib called out HBO host Bill Maher, tweeting, "Maybe folks should boycott his show." That came after the left-leaning comedian and political commentator criticized the pro-Palestinian Boycott, Divestment, Sanctions, or BDS movement, which both Omar and Tlaib support. Last week, Netanyahu banned the congresswomen from going to Israel over BDS. Their planned trip was funded by Palestinian group Miftah, which avidly supports it. Netanyahu said about the U.S. lawmakers it was clear they are planning a journey with the sole target of strengthening the boycott movement and negating the legitimacy of Israel. BDS was condemned in a House vote in July, 398 for and 17 against. Omar of Minnesota and Tlaib of Michigan were among those who opposed it. Under Israeli law, BDS backers can be denied entry into the country. Cindy Drucker, NTD News.
In the U.S., a large fire in the capital of Bangladesh left around 10,000 people homeless and destroyed about 80% of the district. The majority of the slum's residents are low-paid workers from nearby garment factories.
Residents watched from a distance as giant flames burnt their homes last Friday night, silhouetted by fierce pillars of smoke that swept through the Chalantika slum in Bangladesh's capital city of Dhaka. 2,000 huts were destroyed in the fire, leaving at least 10,000 people homeless in just a matter of hours.
Everyone started running out. Some people were bathing. They ran out wet. Some left all their belongings and ran to safety. It was chaos. So I lived here for more than 30 years and I have lost everything. I don't know where I will go and live. I lost everything and now I am homeless and I don't know what to do.
Officials say the majority of the Chalantica residents earn low wages from working in garment factories nearby, and many were out celebrating the Muslim festival of Eid when the fire broke out. Now, Bangladesh's State Minister for Disaster Management and Relief announced on Sunday that around 80% of the slum was either completely or partially demolished by the fire. No one died, but it caused structural damage and injured 4 people who were then hospitalized, according to the director of fire services. The fire service director said the initial flames broke out at about 7:14 p.m. local time, lasting a little more than 4 hours before they were put out. Residents dug through what's left of their belongings, hoping to salvage anything they could.
I was born here. I lived here with my father and mother. I grew up here. My whole family used to live here in this slum, and now we will be separated. Our family had 12 rooms together. It was such a nice place to live, and now we will never find a place like this to stay together.
What caused the fire remains unknown. A committee has been set up to try and investigate and report its findings back within 15 days. The mayor of Dhaka's North City Corporation, Ariko Islam, said all necessary assistance for those impacted will continue until they are rehabilitated, according to state media. He added that the country's prime minister was promising permanent dwellings for all those left homeless, but until then, the residents here are left to sift through the ashes of what they once called home. Miguel Moreno, NTD News.
The upcoming Disney live-action remake of Mulan is facing boycott calls after its Chinese star expressed support for Hong Kong police, following weeks of increasingly hostile confrontations with pro-democracy protesters.
Chinese actress Liu Yifei wrote on the social media platform Weibo in Mandarin, quote, "I support Hong Kong police. You can attack me now," adding in English, "What a shame for Hong Kong," end quote. 10 weeks of confrontations between police and protesters have plunged Hong Kong into its worst crisis since it reverted from British to Chinese rule in 1997. The protests began in opposition to a now suspended bill that would have allowed the extradition of suspects for trial in mainland China, but has since swelled into wider calls for democracy. More than 700 people have been arrested since the protests began in June, and police have been frequently using tear gas on protesters. The Chinese Communist Party has a history of suppressing its people, as one person wrote on Twitter, quote, "Several Chinese celebrities are voicing their opinions in favor of China to protect themselves and their families. Freedom of speech does not exist in China," end quote. Since Liu's post, many people have taken to Twitter to criticize the actress and call on a boycott on Mulan, making Boycott Mulan a trending hashtag worldwide. Liu, a popular star of Chinese film and dramas, is a naturalized citizen of the United States. Mulan is scheduled for release in 2020.
Former Knicks star John Starks and Larry Johnson at Madison Square Garden, home to the New York Knicks, will reminisce about the old days. NTD's Sydney Wong has more.
It's 2 decades since John Starks played at Madison Square Garden, making him a little nostalgic.
I can remember taking the court and running through the tunnel and looking up and seeing all these banners up here and all these jerseys up here. It just gave me chill bumps, and still to this day, it still do.
Starks played for the Knicks from 1990 to 1998. He still remembers the day he made history during Game 2 of the 1993 Eastern Conference Finals, when the Knicks and Chicago Bulls were locked in a tight battle. As guard and fan favorite, Starks successfully dunked over opponent Horace Grant and Michael Jordan. The Knicks went on to win the game. A picture of the iconic moment known as the dunk is now on the wall of MSG. People describe it as perhaps the single most famous play in Knicks history.
Knowing that, I've been a part of a special moment here, many special moments here, along with so many incredible people that has donned that particular floor down there, is very special.
He shared his advice for anyone who's chasing their dreams.
I would tell them to keep pushing, and hopefully one day their dreams will come true. Mine came true when nobody else thought that it would.
His teammate for 2 years with the Knicks, Larry Johnson, played on the team from 1996 to 2001. It was the last team he played for.
John and I, we took a walk, and it was a little different walking on the court without a basketball court on it, so, it's a little different seeing a court like that.
Johnson looks forward to the Knicks making a comeback.
I know our team, we're rebuilding, and we're doing a great job. We got some youngsters coming in, and I think we'll be very exciting this year, and we're on the way up.
2 decades after playing for the Knicks, they're still working for the team and, as ever, excited about and dedicated to the dream. Reporting by Sydney Wong, NTD News, New York.
And that's all for today's NTD Midday News. Join us again this evening. I'm Emily Ho.